Hi guys, it's Kath. Today I have a really fun tutorial for you. We'll be building a super realistic 3-door fridge with working doors, drawers, and lights. It even has storage bins with labels to organize miniature food items. Although I designed and 3D printed most of the parts for this fridge, I'll also show you how you can use wood and acrylic to get a similar result. This is a huge project, so let's get started. I'm designing this fridge in Tinkercad, which is a free website that's perfect for beginners. For the main structure, I take one of these red cubes and plop it down on the workspace. Stretch it out so it's 6 inches in height, 3.5 inches in width, and 3 inches in depth. Or about 158 millimeters in height, 86 millimeters in width, and 78 millimeters in depth. For the door, do the same thing again, but make the depth only 1/4 inch thick. I made this piece green so you can see that a bit better. Grab an invisible cube and stretch it out so it's only 1/8 of an inch thick. Cut that through the green piece about 2 inches from the bottom. This is the cut that divides the top 2 doors from the bottom drawer. We'll cut the top piece into 2 doors, but first, let's make the inside of the fridge. Make a copy of this red rectangle and turn it invisible by clicking the gray hole feature. Shrink it down just a bit and place it inside the red shape. Make it shorter to match the top door heights. Make a copy of this invisible shape and place it at the bottom. Make this one even shorter for the freezer section. These 2 cutouts will create the inside cavity of your fridge. Back to the doors. Take another invisible cube and stretch it out. Make sure it's long and thin and cut it vertically through the top half of the green piece. This creates your 2 French doors. For the hinges, I just take another red cube and place it on the outer edge. Make sure to connect the door and the refrigerator structure. Then I take a cylinder shape, shrink it down, and cut it through both the hinge piece and the door. This will create a hole that we'll use to put a wire in later. Do the same for the bottom corners of the refrigerator section right above the freezer. We'll need some space at the top later for some lighting. For that, I grab another invisible cube and place it at the top of the fridge. This creates enough space for some wires and a light switch. This next step is optional, but I love realistic details inside my miniatures. I'll make this fridge structure white so you can see what I'm doing a bit easier. I grab a red cube and drop it inside the top cavity. Stretch it out so it's a tall, flat rectangle. Place that in the center back of the fridge. For some rails, I take another red cube and stretch it out so it's super thin and long. Place that along one of the back corners of the fridge. Take an invisible cylinder and shrink it down. Place that all along this rail. When you combine all these invisible cylinders with the blue rail, you can see how these cylinders create these holes. Make a copy and put it in the center. Make another copy and put it at the other back corner. While I'm here, I also went ahead and added some long rectangular strips along both sides of the fridge for the drawer rails. Just a few more details here. I add 2 holes at the top of the fridge for lighting that we'll be adding in. I also lift the fridge up just a bit and add in some cylinder legs at the bottom. Lastly, I just cut this fridge into 2 pieces because my printer is too small. However, if you have a bigger printer, you won't need to do this. Let's take a break from modeling and print these out. I'm using my Resin 3D printer for this project because I love the tiny details it can create. Pour the liquid resin into the vat and put on the UV protective cover to start the print. Once that's complete, it will lift out of the liquid resin as a solid piece. After cleaning and curing, this is the top of the fridge. Look at all of those interior details. They will stand out even more once we add paint. And this is the bottom section. As you can see, I also added some rails for the drawers. If you're building this by hand, I recommend using craft plywood that's no thicker than 1/4 inch and no thinner than 1/8 of an inch. There's a delicate balance between being too thick that a piece will not look realistic and being too thin that the wood is too fragile. A really easy way to build a structure is using these trusty wood slats that I've shown you before. You can just take 3 of them and glue them together for the main structure. These craft matchsticks are perfect for drawer rails like you've seen in my kitchen cabinet video. We created the fridge doors in the beginning of this video, but you can also add some additional realistic dimension. Real-life fridges have a rounded effect across all the doors. If you want to replicate that, simply take a cylinder and scale it up so it fills your workspace. I shorten one side so it becomes more of an oval. Center it against your door so that the center of the oval is the front of your doors. Then just cut away all the extra areas you don't need for your doors, and you have a set of fridge doors that have much more dimension. If you don't want to do that, that is perfectly okay, and the fridge will still look amazing. Now let me show you how to create the interior details for the French doors. Here I'm just deleting one of the doors so you can easily see what I'm doing. The first thing I do is grab a red cube and stretch it out so it's on the door. It just needs to be a bit smaller than the door, leaving about 1/5 of an inch gap on each side. Combine those 2 shapes. Then I take an invisible cube and place that on the top of the addition. Combine those shapes and the invisible cube will cut out a space where the shelves will be added. For a touch of realism, cut out a piece in the bottom area. Doing this will also create enough space for a large pull-out drawer that we'll be making later. Print the doors out. I added a few tiny bars for the shelf brackets, but they're not really necessary. Don't mind the uneven finish. That's from the sanding that I did. If you were to make this by hand, I recommend using giant craft sticks or thin sheets. You want to cut them so they are 1 1/4 inches in width and 3 1/2 inches in height. For the interior panels, I'll be using these coffee stirrers. They're 1/4 of an inch thick. Cut them down so they are 1/3 of an inch shorter than the height of your door. Just like in the 3D model, cut a notch out at the bottom. Make 2 of these and glue them to the sides of your door. Cut a shorter piece to close the top section. Then cut a small piece of a craft matchstick for the bottom. Glue it on to close off the bottom. I always use wood glue or Eileen's tacky glue for wooden pieces. Then glue on 2 additional craft sticks to increase the thickness of the door. Just one more piece and I promise we will start assembling. For the bottom freezer drawer, drop a cube and stretch it out so it's 2 1/2 inches in width and in length. Take another invisible cube and put it inside this red cube. Combine the 2 shapes so you have an open compartment. For some additional detail, I take another invisible cube and stretch it out so it's wide and thin. Place that inside the drawer. Make a bunch of copies and line them up against both sides. Then simply combine the shapes to create a bunch of cutouts on each side. Do the same for the back piece. Now you can just add this drawer to the front panel of the refrigerator and you're done. Here's a drawer I printed out and sanded. I also went ahead and created this tiny drawer for another freezer compartment. Here is the freezer section where the drawers will go in. The smaller drawer slides into the top area, and the one we just created slides into the bottom area. And this is the top of the fridge that we created earlier. This goes right on top of the bottom freezer section. Then the doors will sit on the front. Now that the main structure is complete, let's work on the fun cosmetic parts. The first thing I need to do is paint all the interiors white. I'm just using white gloss spray paint to give it a shiny plastic look that real fridges have. See how the paint really brings out the interior details? Let's add some shelves inside. For that, I'll be using clear acrylic sheets. To cut these, all you need to do is score the plastic on both sides and snap it. Then just slide these clear shelves inside your fridge. To attach the top of the fridge to the bottom, I'll be using JB Weld epoxy. Just mix equal parts of the 2-part epoxy until it's uniform in color. And then generously add it to the area where the two sections will meet. Once the epoxy has cured, this piece is as solid as a rock. The next part is so much fun and makes a huge difference. We'll be using stainless steel contact paper for the exterior finish. This stuff is super easy to use, and I don't really need to give you a tutorial on how that's done. One tip I will share is that you can get a smoother finish by placing the piece on top of the contact paper instead of putting the contact paper on the piece. Then just use a sharp X-Acto knife to trim off all the excess paper on each side. This contact paper is quite thick, so I recommend cutting a new piece for each side instead of trying to bend this around the edges. Do this for all the thinner sides as well. See how good the stainless steel effect makes the fridge look already? Now let's work on creating some shelves for the French doors. Similar to how we created the other drawers, this is really just using a red cube and cut out the inside. For these shelves, we'll also want to cut out the back area. Because I want these shelves to be clear, I'll be using clear resin. Once the print is finished, take it off and clean off the excess liquid by soaking it in a vat of isopropyl alcohol. After a few minutes, the pieces should all be clean. Most clear resins will have this yellow tint and dry with a hazy finish that makes it look less clear. But don't worry, I'll show you how to counteract the discoloration and make these super shiny again. I'll be varnishing all of these shelves, so I'm first attaching them to a wooden stick with hot glue. This will allow me to varnish the shelves without getting my hands dirty. For the varnish, I first take some blue food coloring because blue cancels out yellow. Add a drop of blue to some water to thin it out. The varnish I'm using is this water-based polyacrylic clear gloss. I add some to a new container and then add in the blue color water. Now you can just dip the shelf inside this varnish and let it dry. After some trial and error, this is how blue I needed the varnish to be in order to completely cancel out the yellow tints. Dip all of your shelves and leave them to dry overnight. Once the varnish is dry, the shelf is super glossy and clear once again. Now you can just add these shelves inside your French door. To hold them in place, I'm using this clear craft resin as glue. Just add some to the areas of the shelf that will be touching the door. Then place the shelf inside the door and cure the craft resin with a UV light. Once it's cured, that bond will be permanent. Here are the two completed doors. For those that are handcrafting this fridge, I'll show you how to make these clear shelves with acrylic sheets in just a few moments. Go ahead and cover the front and sides of these doors with more stainless steel contact paper. The combination of stainless steel, the shiny white, and the clear shelves looks so good together. This next step is optional, but will add so much functionality to your doors. These are tiny round magnets. I'm using magnets so that the doors will hold in place and give a nice click when it closes. I made a hole in the top corner of each door to add these in. Next step are hinges. I'll be using 20 gauge jewelry wire for the hinges. Just cut off a small section and place them in the holes that we created in the beginning. If you're building this fridge with wood, use a technique from the cabinet video that I've shown you previously. This just involves drilling a hole through the structure and the door piece, and then adding wire through both. These hinges are extremely common in most dollhouse miniatures, and they're really easy to make. Before we add the doors on, let's finish some details first. Add magnets to the top center of the fridge structure and then cover all the exposed areas with stainless steel. To add on the doors, line the door edge with the wire and push it into place. Add an additional piece of wire to the bottom hinge and push it in. Do the same for the other door. Clip off the excess wire. These last few steps have really elevated this piece. For the door handles, I just take an orange cylinder, turn it on the side, and stretch it out so it's an oval, and then scale it up so it's big enough for the door. Make a copy of this oval, turn it invisible, and shrink it just a bit so it can cut away most of the oval except one side edge. Then cut away all the excess from the top and bottom. Now make that super narrow to be only 1/5 of an inch thick or about 5 millimeters. Make 2 of these and print it out. Just like for all the other pieces, cover the front of these with stainless steel contact paper. The sides are a bit too thin to cover with contact paper, so I brushed on a chrome finish. Now just use JB Weld epoxy to glue them to the doors. For the interior drawers and the storage bins, I printed a bunch of them with clear resin from before. However, you can also use acrylic sheets to do the same. All you need to do is cut out the bottom and sides of the drawer and glue them together with craft resin. I just add resin to the edges where the acrylic meets, and place the 2 acrylic pieces together under UV light. A helpful tip here is to score the areas where the acrylic pieces meet. This will allow the resin to have better adhesion. Here I'm making a fridge organizer for drinks. You can get really creative and create any type of drawer shelf or organizer that you like. Let's take this up a notch with some labels. For that, I'll be using these water slide decal papers. You simply print on them, seal them with a gloss, and they're ready to use. Just place a piece that you want to use in some water for 30 seconds, and the clear label will slide right off. This stuff is so much fun, and this detail adds so much character to this fridge. Last step is lighting, and this is my favorite part because it's so easy. I'll be using these LED fairy lights. You've seen me use fairy lights a lot before, and I usually use yellow lights. These are actually cool white ones that will look amazing in a fridge. At this point, I decided that the 2 holes at the top weren't enough, so I drilled in an additional one. Then I marked where I want the on-off switch for the lights to be and cut away at the top of the fridge to give me space for the switch itself. A helpful tip here is to move the 2 front screws from the battery pack so you can open and close this battery pack. Then add hot glue and glue it in place. The reason I removed the screws is so you can remove this battery pack without needing to pull the entire switch off the fridge. Then glue the wire around the back of the fridge and pull it up over the top. Now all I need to do is add hot glue as I wrap wire around the top of the fridge, focusing the lights on the center and the corners. I should note here that I drilled a few additional holes in each one of the top corners. I pull off some of the contact paper in the back and drill a hole in the freezer section. I pulled off the contact paper because hot glue doesn't stick really well to it. Here I decided to remove some more of the contact paper and drilled a few additional holes. I didn't initially plan on doing this for the freezer section, but now I'm so glad that I did. Let me show you how this white light will look inside this fridge. As a final step, I decided to create a top cover to hide the wires and the battery. This was pretty simple as it's really just a rectangle with the inside cutouts. Cover this piece in contact paper as well for a seamless finish. Totally optional, but I decided to add a back panel as well in case anyone were to look at the back of the fridge. I used the same technique as the bottom freezer drawer to create these grid cutouts on this panel. Then simply glue it on and you're done. This fridge has been such a labor of love and I'm so happy with how it turned out. I think this is an amazing addition to my dollhouse that's coming along very slowly. Thank you to all of those that have been patient with me and leave such wonderful comments. I don't post very frequently anymore because life has gotten really busy with my family and my career. However, I promise I'll always come back and provide you tutorials when I have time. In the meantime, you can always stay up to date with me on my Instagram where I'm much more active and share updates that don't make it to YouTube. I have 2 more videos in the works that I'm super eager to share with you. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you next time. Bye!